This is my video update from Ayia Napa on this Saturday midday, May 13th. Let's talk about some news. And this is the statue of Icarus. Icarus flew too close to the sun from Panicos Spanos. Icarus. Icar. 7th Ayia Napa International Sculpture Symposium, 2019. I really love this statue. A lot of meaning behind the story of Icarus. A whole lot of meaning there. So let's talk about what is going on in the news today. And let's start things off with the foreign ministers meeting, the EU foreign ministers meeting in Sweden. And boy, did we have a whole bunch of crazy statements from various EU foreign ministers. And let's start things off with the craziest foreign minister of them all, which is Jungle Joseph Borrell, the EU foreign minister. This guy is supposed to be the #1 diplomat in all of Europe. This is the guy, the #1 diplomat in the entirety of the European Union. It is Jungle Joseph Borrell, and boy did he trash China. I mean, he really trashed China. Let's get to some of his quotes. Jungle Joseph told reporters in Sweden, and I quote, "EU relations with China will not develop normally unless China convinces Russia to leave Ukraine. Life is complicated. If we do not like their behavior, we cannot be good friends. The war in Ukraine is an existential conflict for us. China must understand this, and China must understand that the EU does not like the circumvention of sanctions." So the conflict in Ukraine, according to Jungle Joseph, is now existential for the European Union. We know that it's existential for Russia. They have been saying that Ukraine joining NATO or Ukraine getting nuclear weapons is absolutely existential for Russia. But now you have Jungle Joseph, the chief diplomat of the European Union, coming out and saying that the conflict in Ukraine is now existential for the European Union. He also said that China must understand this. They must understand that this is an existential conflict for the European Union. And China, the EU, does not like it when you circumvent sanctions. So stop it. That is what Jungle Joseph is telling China. Stop circumventing sanctions. Understand that the conflict in Ukraine is existential to us, the EU, and if you want to be friends with the European Union, then you've got to tell Russia to stop what they're doing. That's the only way that the EU will become friends with China, because according to Jungle Joseph, life, everybody, life is complicated. Life is complicated. It's like butter and cannons, according to Jungle Joseph. It's the jungle and the garden. Life is complicated. Let's see. Jungle Joseph also said that the EU has two major strategic security issues with China, which are the situation around the self-governing island of Taiwan and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. You see, it's not only Ukraine that the EU has problems with China, but it is also Taiwan. The EU is also very upset with China over Taiwan. I don't know, maybe Jungle Joseph will say that Taiwan is existential for the European Union. I'm sure that statement is coming soon as well. Quote, "We cannot have a normal relation with China if China does not use the strong influence that China has on Russia in order to stop the war." Borrell described China as a partner, but also as a competitor and rival of the EU, saying that rival was the key term. Brussels and Beijing represent two very different competing systems, engaged in a global battle of narratives and a battle of offers to the world. Jungle Joseph said, "Our systems, our political and economic systems are different, completely different. We are multi-party democracies. They are a single party. We are market economies. The Chinese economy is being driven by the state. So we are very different," Borrell told journalists. "We are rivals because we present our models to the rest of the world. The important thing is not to prevent China from becoming a world power, but to manage how it uses this power. If it uses this power in accordance with international law, if it does not put in danger our interests and values, we have to live with China on the world stage." So the EU can learn to deal with China if China doesn't put the EU interests in danger. Russia can learn to live with Ukraine and even the Elensky regime or the Poroshenko regime or any other Western-backed puppet regime that comes into power in Ukraine, as long as Ukraine doesn't put Russia's interests in danger, like joining NATO or obtaining nuclear weapons. Right, Jungle Joseph? Is that basically what you're saying? He also talks about how the EU is a market system and a multi-party system, and that's what it offers to the world, while China offers a single-party system and all of these things. Well, you know, you could argue that, yeah, the collective West, they are a bunch of countries with multi-party systems, but those multi-party systems are just really one big uniparty system, to be quite honest. There's not much difference anymore between the left, the center, and the right when it comes to European Union political parties. And as far as the EU being a market system, well, I don't know. Market systems don't close down airspace. They don't close down travel. They don't place sanctions. They allow the markets to operate freely. They don't, for example, I don't know, maybe cut off all the oil from one country into the European Union, like what the 11th sanctions package is going to do, which is to cut off all of the oil entering the EU via EU ports. So I don't know. That doesn't sound like much of a market system to me, but you know, what do I know? What do I know, Jungle Joseph? Anyway, let's get to some more crazy comments and statements made during this EU foreign ministers meeting. We had the Lithuanian foreign minister, I'm going to butcher this name, Gabrielius Landsbergis, and he called on the EU to speak with China, and I quote, "in the language of force." In the language of force. That's right, China. Lithuania is telling you that you better get in line with EU dictates, or else you know what's coming from Lithuania. And Lithuania is telling the European Union it's time to use force when dealing with China. All of NATO is 12% of the planet's population, and China is 18%. China has industrial output of both the USA and the EU combined. The EU is in no position to dictate anything to China, and EU leaders should shut their traps. Exactly right. The European Union to China is like, I don't even know, it's like a piece of turd on their shoes. That's what the European Union is like to China, to be quite honest. So, I find these statements, especially from Lithuania, threatening China and telling the EU that it's time to use force when dealing with China, I find these statements absolutely absurd. Let's now talk about statements from Annalena 360 degrees Baerbock. She said that she's very concerned with the news about South Africa providing weapons to Russia. Now, I talked about this story yesterday in my video update, how the U.S. ambassador to South Africa came out and basically threatened South Africa about the claims, the allegations that South Africa was providing weapons to Russia. From what I understand, and I could be wrong on my reporting, but from what I understand, the U.S. ambassador has since kind of walked back his statements. I don't want to say he apologized, but he kind of walked it back a bit, what he said, after he was called in by the South African foreign minister to explain himself. And according to Reuters, South Africa has denied these allegations, saying that they did not approve or sanction any weapons to Russia, but according to Reuters, there were some private entities that may have sent weapons to Russia. And that's pretty much the story about these weapons to South Africa. But the U.S. ambassador did water down his initial statements after he was called in by the South African Foreign Ministry to explain his comments. And Annalena Baerbock, she had to weigh in on this issue. And she said that Berlin takes Washington's claims that Moscow received a weapons shipment from South Africa very seriously. German Foreign Minister Baerbock said on Friday her statement came after Pretoria rejected the allegations and summoned the U.S. ambassador for an explanation. I am very concerned that there have been these reports, Baerbock told journalists on the sidelines of the EU Foreign Ministers Summit in Stockholm, Sweden. She added that she was treating the allegations very seriously and would consult with other countries on the matter. If someone were to supply weapons to the aggressor, it would be the opposite of ending the war, Baerbock said, referring to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Gosh, if someone were to supply weapons to these parties involved in this conflict, it would not help to end the war, according to Baerbock. Gosh, what country is providing weapons to one of the parties in this conflict? What country is providing weapons to one of these parties in this conflict and brags about the fact that they are supplying weapons to one of these parties in this conflict? What country? Could it possibly be Germany? Could Germany be preventing an end to this war by providing weapons to one of the sides? I don't know. Maybe, just maybe. There are claims, and I haven't been able to verify this, but there are claims that Annalena Baerbock also said this. Now, I haven't been able to verify this, but here is another quote that Baerbock allegedly said on the sidelines of this foreign ministers' meeting in Sweden. And I quote, "Possible supplies by third countries of weapons or military goods for Russia are equated with participation in the conflict in Ukraine." Now, if this is indeed a quote from Annalena 360 degrees Baerbock, well then, I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. This is what Baerbock said on April 20th, 2023, just a few weeks ago. She said, quote, "I want to clearly state that we in the government are united, that we will not become a party to the conflict by supplying weapons to Ukraine." Okay, so according to Baerbock, if any country, a third country, supplies weapons to this conflict, to a military that is involved in this conflict, then they are a participant in this war. Interesting statement from Annalena Baerbock. Well, let's see here. Let's see. Just yesterday, Germany has announced it is preparing the largest package of military aid to Ukraine since the beginning of the war, according to German media reports. The price of the package is 2.7 billion euros and will include 20 BMP Marder, 30 Leopard tanks, 18 howitzers on wheels, 4 air defense systems Iris-T SLM, 12 launchers and hundreds of missiles, 200 reconnaissance drones and 100 combat vehicles and over 100 vehicles for logistical support. Belgium has announced that it will be allocating $92 million in assistance package to Ukraine. The funds will be taken from confiscated Russian assets, the press service of the Belgian government reports. Half of this package will be used for military assistance. The remaining 46 million will go to humanitarian aid and strengthening the diplomatic presence of Belgium. Is Germany a party to this war, Annalena Baerbock? Is Belgium a party to this war? According to your statements and according to your criteria, I would say, oh yeah. Oh yeah, are they a party to this war? So yesterday, we had missiles hit Lugansk, and they targeted, from what I understand, they targeted apartment buildings, government offices, as well as, if I'm not mistaken, I also think they targeted the grounds of a church as well, an Orthodox church. I could be wrong about that. But missiles did hit Lugansk, and there's a lot of videos and photos of the damage that the missiles did, and there were claims that these missiles were American decoy missiles that the U.S. Has not admitted to sending to Ukraine, but I guess they have sent these decoy missiles, which are usually used to bait air defense systems, but in this case it looks like Ukraine used these decoy missiles to actually hit targets in Lugansk. But there are also claims, and this is not 100%, but there are claims that some of the missiles fired at Lugansk were these UK Storm Shadow missiles. And if this is true, then it means that while the UK announced the delivery of these Storm Shadow missiles yesterday, or 2 days ago, these missiles actually made their way to Ukraine many weeks ago. And now they are actually being used by the Ukraine military. I believe that the UK announced the delivery of these Storm Shadow missiles a day or two before Ukraine was going to use these missiles, because they told Ukraine to use these missiles, and they probably did all of the heavy lifting and targeting and surveillance to use these missiles. So I think this was targeting Lugansk, and I believe targeting Crimea and Donbass and any other areas, and maybe even inside the Russian Federation. I believe the UK, they're the ones that are doing all of the heavy lifting. The UK, the US, Poland, they're the ones that are targeting these areas, and the UK, they're just, they just kind of announced, we're going to give these Storm Shadow missiles, and then a day later, these Storm Shadow missiles are fired in Lugansk, and all of this is just done to provide cover That's all they are doing. They know weeks in advance what they're going to do, what they're going to target, and then a day before they actually target those areas, they announce that they've delivered these missiles. And Russia, for its part, they came out with a statement and they warned Britain over the delivery of these cruise missiles. Moscow has said it reserves the right to take any measures necessary to neutralize threats posed by the British-made weapons. Let's see here. The Russian Foreign Ministry called the move, and I quote, a very unfriendly step on the UK's part, which shows London's unprecedented level of involvement in the conflict. It said, the Russian Foreign Ministry said that that London is carried away with geopolitical games. The UK is apparently ready to cross any red lines and bring the conflict towards a totally new level when it comes to destruction and casualties. That is what the Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement. Yeah, they've crossed red lines, but you know what I'm going to say is going to be pretty, I don't know, pretty cynical, I guess. I guess that's the right word. But, you know, the collective West, I think at this point in time, they've crossed just about every red line you could possibly cross, with the exception of, I don't even know anymore, fighter jets, ATACMS, and tactical nukes. I mean, I'm trying to think, what is next in line for, one sec. You're welcome. What is next in line for the collective West to deliver to Ukraine that is going to cross a red line? ATACMS, F-16s, and tactical nukes. That's it. I mean, they've delivered the Leopard tanks. They've now delivered the long-range missiles. They've delivered the HIMARS, and they've delivered 180 billion in money and 100 billion in weapons and whatever. I mean, you know, they've crossed every red line there is, and Russia warns. But you know, to be fair and honest, Russia hasn't responded to any of these red lines being crossed, and I don't even know if Russia can respond. I mean, they can respond, but I don't know if they want to respond, or maybe they feel like responding to this escalation is not in their interests, or perhaps Russia is going to play the long game and respond in 5 years or 10 years. Who knows? But you know, the fact that Russia hasn't responded to the continual crossing of red lines has led the collective West to continually cross red lines. The way I see it is that Russia is not going to respond to any of these provocations. I think that Russia feels they can handle the escalation, the military escalation, to a certain point from the collective West. And the Putin government, I guess the simplest explanation as to why Russia doesn't respond to any of the escalations is that they're probably looking at this conflict in much the same way that they saw Syria. You know, today Assad is sitting down at the same table with Saudi Arabia and Turkey and all the countries that tried to regime change him just 2-3 years ago. And so I think that the Putin government is probably thinking, you know what, in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you know, forget all the rhetoric coming from us, coming from them. In 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, we're going to be sitting at a table, all of us together again, and doing business. So let them provoke, let them escalate, and eventually, playing the long game, we'll make friends again. I guess that's what they're thinking. I don't know. Well, we'll see how Russia responds to this latest crossing of a red line. If Russia is capable to respond to this we'll see. We'll see. I don't think they will. I think they'll just deal with the escalation like they have been dealing with the escalation with all the other previous escalations, and they'll use their air defense and stuff like that to deal with these cruise missiles. Not to be outdone by the UK, Poland, they're also provoking Russia, and from what I understand, according to Polski radio, the Polish Senate, they have approved a resolution on Ukraine's accession to NATO under an accelerated procedure. According to a document obtained by Polski radio, and I quote, Ukraine today has the strongest army on the continent with extraordinary combat experience. The Ukrainian army is rapidly re-equipping with NATO equipment and using operational art and tactics with Western allies have been deploying for decades. The Polish Senate asks NATO to apply to Ukraine the emergency procedure adopted in the case of Finland and Sweden under the accelerated procedure. So, Poland is pushing for Ukraine to enter NATO, knowing that Ukraine entering NATO for Russia would be a red line. But Poland is pushing to cross that red line. So in my video yesterday, I talked about how the Elensky regime is trying to avoid the spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall offensive to the counteroffensive that is very offensive and offends me and you, spring, offensive, counteroffensive, which is very offensive. And the Elensky regime, you know, they're trying to avoid going on this offensive. Sirski is trying to avoid commanding this offensive. Zaluzhny says that he was at a wedding over the past 3-4 days, and that's why he couldn't attend a NATO meeting. And that's why he's been in hiding. He was at a wedding, everybody. Oh, man, the stuff they think of. The stuff they think of. So, yeah, Zaluzhny, you know, I'm at a wedding. I can't deal with with your spring counteroffensive or your spring offensive. And I'm getting my best friend married here. This is such a, if you don't laugh, you cry, because this war is crazy. This is a crazy conflict. I don't know if it's social media that amplifies the craziness. I don't know if previous wars were this crazy, and because we have Twitter and Telegram, everything is amplified, but man, is it crazy. Anyway, what was I saying here? Yeah, the Elensky regime, according to the Financial Times, they are delaying the offensive because, according to the Financial Times, the Elensky regime knows that they're going to get crushed if they go on this offensive, and they know if they get crushed, then all the money dries up. That is exactly what I said yesterday, and that is exactly what the Financial Times reported today, or yesterday. Maybe someone at the Financial Times saw my video and wrote up this article. I doubt it. But yeah, it's always about money. When it comes to the Elensky regime, it is always about money. Always. It is very, very windy today. Very windy. So, yeah, Elensky knows what's up. He knows that if he fails in this offensive, he's going to lose hundreds of billions in weapons and in money. That's why he's delaying it. I don't think he has a plan, to be quite honest. I just think he's trying to buy time. That's what I believe he's trying to do. Blinken gave an interview the other day, and once again, Blinken told Elensky to just get on with it. He said, get on with this offensive. And he assured Elensky that the US will support Ukraine for as long as it takes, and that whatever gets destroyed in this offensive, the US will replenish it. The Biden White House has also come out with a statement via Mr. Kirby, and they said that even if the US goes bust and defaults, they will still print money for Ukraine. For the American people, we don't really care about the American people. That's what the Biden White House says. But Ukraine, we are absolutely going to make sure Ukraine gets the money, because why would the Biden White House not pay itself, which is essentially what they're doing when they give money to Ukraine and to Elensky. They're paying themselves. So why would they stop that, even in the case of a default? Doesn't make any sense. So let's see here. Let's see. I think I've covered quite a lot of ground. Wow. How about the Wall Street Journal saying U.S. ally rebuffs request to block Russian military flights? So Egypt, like South Africa, like Georgia, they were also getting pressured by the United States, in this instance, to block Russian military flights over Egypt, or landing in Egypt. I don't know, just military flights through Egypt. And the Egyptian government said, no, we're not going to do that. Well done, Egypt. That is sovereignty. That is sovereignty. And in Turkey we have elections tomorrow. Very, very big elections. And Erdogan, according to just about every single poll, Erdogan is very, very far behind. He is running a distant second. If we don't have a clear winner tomorrow, then I believe we have a runoff. I think it's the runoff. The second round would be scheduled for the 28th of May. But every poll has Erdogan down by anywhere between, I think, 8 points to 4 points, 3-4 points. He is set to lose these elections according to the polling. According to the polling. And his opponent, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, who is actually heading up like a 6-party coalition, which is kind of the model that the collective West tried to use to oust Orban. Remember, during the elections in Hungary, they put together this 6-party coalition to go up against Orban's one party, and they thought that these 6 parties together would be able to beat Orban, but Orban crushed these 6 parties. I think this is kind of like the same model that's being used in Turkey. Anyway, this party, they came out with a statement, and they said that Russia was interfering in Turkey's elections and Turkey's domestic affairs, for which Erdogan, he told Kılıçdaroğlu to be ashamed of these allegations. And I quote, Kemal began to pester Russia, claiming interference in the elections. Be ashamed. If I now say that the USA, Germany, England, France are interfering in the elections in Turkey, what will you answer? I know all these people very well. I have met and talked with them for 20 years. How many times have you met with them? Erdogan said. So, you know, I don't know what happens if Erdogan loses, but if this government is indeed influenced by the collective West, then there could be a lot of trouble between Russia and Turkey. A lot of trouble. There could be closing off the airspace. There could be Turkish sanctions. Turkey could fall in line with collective West sanctions against Russia. You know, you could be looking at serious issues in the Black Sea. So there could be a lot of issues and a lot of tension if, and I say if, this new government is very, very deeply aligned with the collective West. And then, of course, you have Iran and Syria. and all kinds of other hotspots that Turkey is involved with. So we have very, very important elections tomorrow in Turkey. Keep an eye on Turkey, everybody. And let's do a couple of clown worlds. And this is not a clown world, actually, but this is about Twitter. So let's do a quick update. Stepping away from geopolitics and just talk about, real quickly, the new CEO of Twitter, Linda Yaccarino. She has been appointed the CEO of Twitter. Elon Musk made the announcement the other day. This was expected. Elon Musk, he can't be the CEO of every company. And so he had to get someone to manage Twitter and manage the day-to-day. We'll see how she does. I have no idea what kind of CEO or manager she will be. And at the end of the day, Elon Musk is the owner, and that's the most important thing. He owns Twitter, and the owner can always overrule the CEO if she does decide to go the route of cancellation and suppressing free speech and stuff like that. But I think he brought her in. Actually, I'm positive that he brought her in for two reasons. Three reasons. The first reason is that he can't manage all of these companies, so he has to delegate Twitter to someone. Fair enough. The other reason that he brought her in is because she's a very experienced ad executive, and so she's going to be responsible for the revenue, the ad revenue side of Twitter. Makes sense. She was a high-level executive at NBC Universal, and she knows the industry very well, and I'm sure she's got the connections that are needed to boost Twitter's ad business. And I think the third reason that he brought her in is because she does have experience in streaming and in video and in film. And I think that Twitter is going to make a very big play to become a YouTube type of competitor, a long-form content video service. And for that, you're going to need someone who understands not only the ad side of things and monetizing videos with advertisements, but also someone who's going to understand copyrights and all of these things. And so I think he brought her in because she's going to play a key role in making Twitter into a long-form video content platform. And that means that Twitter will be competing with the likes of YouTube and Rumble. And of course, she is part of the World Economic Forum. That is absolutely troubling, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe she's had a change of heart, and she's not so hot on Klaus Schwab anymore. But let's walk that way. Let's walk down over there. But most likely, she's still part of the WEF. I think like the WEF, when you become a part of it, it's very, very hard to get out. But anyway, we'll see, you know. Time will tell. And if she does a bad job, once again, Elon Musk is the owner, and he can always fire her. So keep that in mind. Now, let's get to some real clown worlds. The first clown world is that Finland has built a wall. They've built the wall with Russia. I'm going to put a picture of the wall. It's actually not a wall. It's more like a really pretty fence. And here is the fence that Finland has built to, I don't know, to keep Russians out or to keep the people in Finland in. I'm not quite sure, but either way, this beautiful fence, very low fence as well, is not going to do much to, I guess, to prevent people from crossing over in one direction or the other. If they really want to cross over, I don't see why they would want to cross over in that type of way by climbing over a fence. But anyway, it's a pretty fence. In my younger days, if I saw a fence like that, I would definitely want to jump over it. I would definitely want to climb it and scale it. You see a pretty fence like that, and if you're a young boy, you say, I want to hop that fence. That's a cool fence to hop over. So that is the big fence that Finland has built to prevent Russian aggression and Putin's war machine. And let's talk about Eurovision. And I believe that Finland is one of the favorites. I believe that Sweden is the favorite to win Eurovision, but I think Finland is up there. Anyway, Eurovision in Liverpool, the home of the Beatles, and Elensky's office actually is refuting claims that he wanted to speak at Eurovision. Elensky's office said nothing of the sort happened. And here's the quotes from Elensky's spokesperson, Sergei Nikiforov. The Times information does not correspond to reality. The office of the president of Ukraine did not address the organizers of the European Song Contest to offer Vladimir Elensky's online performance during the finals or at any other stage of the contest. If you believe that, I've got a very, very big bridge to sell you. Anyway, that's what Ukraine claims. That's what Elensky claims. He's saying that Eurovision is lying. Liars. Liars, that Eurovision. Elensky never wanted to speak at Eurovision. He has no interest in Eurovision at all. At all. So that is the statement from Elensky. Oh, by the way, Sunak, he had to weigh into all of this. And Sunak said that Eurovision should let Elensky talk. Sunak, man oh man. So Sunak wants Elensky to give a video statement, even though Elensky said that he never asked to give a video statement. Eurovision is saying that Elensky is not going to be allowed to give a video statement because Eurovision is not a political organization. And Sunak is saying, no, Elensky should give a video speech to Eurovision. What a mess. Whatever happened to the days when Eurovision was just about each country in Europe, not outside of Europe, each country in Europe presenting a song in their language, highlighting their culture. Whatever happened to those days? All right, and a final clown world to wrap things up is Fox News with this title: dozens of House Republicans demand Biden take a cognitive test or drop out of the 2024 race. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Come on, Republicans. You know that Biden's cognitive deficiencies, they are a feature, not a bug. So why would Biden drop out of a race? Why would the neocons tell Biden to drop out of the race for cognitive issues when it is those very same cognitive issues that the neocons absolutely love about Biden? Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are also on Rumble, Rockfin, Telegram, ODYSEE, and BitChute. And go to the Duran shop. Use the code GOODDAY. Get 10% off. And I'm wearing my USA Duran shirt right here. I've actually got my Duran Grease hat. And we also have meme t-shirts now. We're ramping up t-shirts with interesting, fun statements like Trudeau, you idiot, and no reverse gear and stuff like that. So we're going to get a lot more t-shirts along those lines up on the Duran shop as well. So check those out. Take care.